let's welcome Rebecca, Absalom, and Judith Green, who are joining us from Eversheds Sutherland. And they were the gold winner at the Internal Comms and Engagement Awards in the COVID-19 category. So we're really pleased to have them sharing their experiences with us. And I know they're going to talk a lot more in detail, but they launched an app in, I think it was 12 days, when normally it would take about 9 weeks. So I'll let you guys talk through that experience. But yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Brittany. And I think I've got some video problems already, but it's 2020 and this is kind of how we roll now. So we'll give it our best shot. So thank you very much for inviting us to join you this morning. I'm Judith Green. I'm the Director of Communications and Brand for Eversheds Sutherland. We are a global law firm with 68 offices in 32 countries. And I'm joined by my colleague, Rebecca Absalom, who is our PR and communications executive and was very much the driving force behind making Open House happen. So yes, we are here today. We want to just talk you through our in-house app, Open House, which we developed in response to the pandemic. So we're going to go pretty quickly because it's an app, it's not rocket science, and we do want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end because we think there will be lots. So starting with the basics, what is Open House? So this was our response from an internal comms perspective to the world's largest enforced remote working experiment. So I think it's fair to say that the novelty of working from home wore off really very quickly, way back when. Once we kind of had got over the relief that the tech seemed to work and we could in fact manage a major global law firm from our studies, from our bedrooms, from our kitchen tables, we very, very kind of quickly got to a stage where we thought, well, actually, Boris said he's going to send the virus packing in 12 weeks. That always felt a little bit unrealistic, and even 12 weeks felt like a really, really long time to be looking at. And we knew we were going to miss our work family. I have missed my work family immensely. It's been the biggest personal challenges for me, actually, during this year. And we knew we were going to miss those little quick power catch-ups that you get in the lift, and those water cooler moments, and those moments of serendipity when you just bump into someone and something fabulous happens. So we knew this was a challenge. This was going to be a huge internal comms challenge. But equally for us, it was a little bit of an opportunity because without telling too many tales out of school, our intranet is built on a really old version of SharePoint. I think maybe 1869, something like that, maybe earlier. And as a result, we don't have any sort of social element rather, on our intranet. So we didn't really have a way of having that kind of, high degree of interactivity, if you like, with our people. So as Brittany said, this was a really, really speedy project. We went from idea to launch in 12 working days, which was pretty extraordinary. It normally takes us 6 to 8 weeks to get an app launched. And what we've kind of ended up with is exactly what we wanted, which is something really light touch, really fun, really supportive, really, really personal, nothing to do with work whatsoever. And it has gone down really well. So about 1,600 downloads so far. That's about half of the people who could have the app. So obviously a little way to go. But in terms of a new addition to our internal comms armory, if you like, we've been really, really pleased with the results. So as I said, early in lockdown, we kind of thought, well, we're going to need something to keep us all connected. We're going to need something to preserve that cultural glue, if you like. And indeed, early doors, our HR team did an engagement survey, pulse survey really. And indeed, the kind of common theme that came back from people was their fear of being disconnected. So we knew we needed something. That's what the app was for. We also knew we needed to align it with our broader wellbeing program. And for us, because of the challenges that we have with our intranet, we also needed something that was going to have longevity, because this was a huge opportunity for us as an internal comms team to finally build something into our stable, if you like, that has that high degree of interactivity. I'm just going to turn it over to Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. So following our internal survey, we formed the Staying Connected steering group. And that was led by the comms and brand team with input from our HR, IT, risk and D&I teams. And we designed the app in-house, and then we engaged our existing external app developer called Fliplet to bring our vision to life. And when we designed the app, we intentionally used the brighter end of our brand colour palette, so it would look more like a social app than a corporate app. And we purposely use that colour palette today in our slides to give you a flavour of just how bright and fun it is. So when the app was made, the steering group rigorously tested it, and we named the app Open House. So this reflected the welcoming atmosphere of the app and its casual tone, and was also a play on words now that we were home-based. And as Judith mentioned, the idea went from idea to launch in just 12 days, and it was rolled out to our international network in April this year. And when it launched, it had on it a mixture of static content that was produced by the comms team and peer-created content. An open house works like many other social apps, which makes it really intuitive to use. And on the slide, we've got a nice example there of our knowledge team leader's cat called Oscar wearing an innocent smoothie hat, and the subsequent chit chat around it, so you can see just how conversational the posts are on the app.
Thank you, Rebecca. Sorry to give you some live feedback in front of hundreds of people, but we struggled to hear you a little bit there. Can you just pull your microphone down nearer your mouth? So before we get going on your next slide, we will just check your sound, but thank you. So one of the things that is different about Open House from apps that some of our competitor law firms were launching back in the spring is that ours has absolutely nothing to do with work whatsoever. So plenty of other law firms launched apps which were really around how to work from home, how to get your setup, your IT setup, your sound, Rebecca, working really well, etc., etc. But we were, took a very intentional view that this was just going to be our fun space. So it's not just a sort of top-down blast kind of communications channel. It's a real kind of bottom-up, driven by the people for the people, and very, very conversational in tone, kind of like a good old-fashioned chat room in many respects. And we're going to show you some screen grabs so you can get a bit more idea of the content later on. We have continued to develop the app since launch. We've been through 3 iterations, I think, now, and continuing to add in features to get more and more engagement. We've had a really good response from our people. We've also had quite a lot of interest from the legal industry press. And indeed, we've had clients and other law firms come to us asking for demos, which we've been incredibly happy to do. We're very, very open about this. It's not a state secret, no copyright on good ideas. And in fact, if we could have made it open source, we would have done. But actually, Rebecca's going to come on to talk about the fact we actually built it on a proprietary platform. But there are no state secrets here. So anybody who wants a bit more of a demo after this, please do get in touch. So I'm just going to turn to Rebecca. Can I just check your sound before you go on?
Yes, I was going to say, can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So, when we look at the app, it's been a huge success, and we've had really fantastic feedback from across the firm. When it first launched, it had a great uptake, and it's just continued gaining momentum ever since and has become hugely popular. So on the slide, you can see a real mix of content from across the app. So, for example, we had a colleague who went to a golf course in Scotland, obviously not very recently. And we've got a couple of entertainment pieces there for children and for adults. And we also have some very impressive cooking. And I'm definitely not saying that because I actually made that myself. And the app continues to develop and grow. So as Judith said, we've had 3 iterations of the app since launch. Firstly, we moved our recognition scheme called Everyday Heroes onto the app. And this encourages our people to praise their colleagues with public messages of virtual thanks linked to one of our 5 values. And we've had over 300 messages of thanks given so far, which has really helped to drive traffic towards the app as our people were already familiar with the recognition scheme. And back in May, to support Mental Health Awareness Week, I'm sure you'll all remember that this year's theme was kindness, chosen in response to the pandemic. And we actually changed Everyday Heroes to Everyday Kindness Heroes as part of a wider internal campaign. and we asked our people to nominate their colleagues and teams for their kind gestures, both in and out of work. And this is a great example of how the app has allowed us to be really flexible in our content. The back end of the app is really simple, and so that's allowed us to adapt the app at an incredible speed. And one of the challenges, many challenges that we've all faced, is replicating that face-to-face interaction in a virtual world. And for our people networks who are largely events-driven, this has been immensely challenging, and it's led for the need to develop an alternative way of keeping in touch. And so in June, we launched a dedicated chat room for our people networks on the app. And this is a space for them to begin discussions, share resources, share photos, and share network news and updates on activities and upcoming events. And our most recent development is Bright Ideas, which is our innovation platform, very similar to an old style idea box, which allows our people to suggest pretty much any ideas that they like. These are then reviewed by our team of curators and progressed where relevant. And this has really allowed our people's ideas to bubble up to the top, and has been really, really well received across the firm. We've had great feedback on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then for our final couple of slides before we open it up to questions, we just wanted to share our most popular content. I also love the fact, by the way, that when we were in the Everyday Heroes section, Rebecca actually chose to share her own Everyday Heroes award.
Do my own PR.
Just doing your own PR. I was just going to say, no one's going to do it for us. So back in, when was it? April, it was World Earth Day, and we launched a photo competition. So it was a 12-week competition with a different theme each week, kind of encouraging people to get out and about where they could, mindful of COVID-19 restrictions, etc., and to submit their photos. And then we had a member of the senior leadership team pick a winner each month. And this was much more popular than I thought it was going to be, if I'm really honest. So we had over 300 entries, 3,500 likes, etc., etc. And you can see on the screen the worthy winners from that competition. So we now know that that works as a structure. So we in fact just launched our most recent competition in the last week or so. And then furry tales as in spelt like the wagging sort. So this is by far our most popular section of the app, which I'm going to guess is not going to be a surprise to most people. So if there is any internal comms challenge out there that you're struggling with, my advice to you would be to just involve the pets, because it just seems to get the most phenomenal level of engagement. So we've had lots of lockdown puppies that we've all grown up with, been through the tears and tantrums on those. We've had naughty ponies who like to break out of their enclosures and take themselves off to town for a walk, or sometimes down to the pub. Remember the days when we could go to the pub? And my favourite is a chicken called Dora the Explorer, which is just fantastic, and I absolutely love that. So here's some of our pets on screen. And then this is actually my personal favourite as well, which is What I've Seen Today. And it's really very, very varied in terms of the content. So, we get something from every corner of the planet. We get, little small moments. We get huge sunsets. We get all sorts of things. We'll just pop some things on the slide for you to see. So you can see a beautiful tree, lunchtime stroll. Far right-hand side, we're encouraging our teams now to do remote walking meetings where they can, and there's some little selfies there. And then in the middle, actually, that's a you probably can't quite see that. I took that. That's our London office back in September, and I very briefly found my way to the office before we went into lockdown again. Bearing in mind our name is Eversheds Sutherland, I was delighted to see a very fancy Bentley with a chauffeur parked outside the office with the number plate of ES1. I had hoped it was a member of our firm, but in fact, whoever it was popping into the cocktail bar just opposite the office. I'm hoping it weren't a member of our firm, but just kind of something fun and to show people the office, because I think a lot of our people are really missing the office, and I'm certainly one of them. And that brings us to the end of our slides. So Brittany, if you'd like to
Yes.
Cross-examine us. We'd be
Yeah, of
delighted.
I love the pets, and it's funny that chickens always get really punny names. My mom has 2 chickens called Thelma and Louise because they kept trying to escape. It's always chickens. But we've had a ton of audience questions, and I promise you guys I will get to those. I just had one from me, which was about the Open House app, and apps are internal comms is no stranger to apps. But I think what you guys have done is kind of adapt the content that you've had on there over time. Why was that important, and how did you go about making sure that what you're doing next was kind of the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's a good one. So speed was of the essence. So, the first iteration was very much, what we thought people needed and what we could achieve quickly, if I'm honest. And then, data is oil, as we know, and we could see very quickly what sort of content was really engaging with people. And that kind of helped really sort of refine what we might do in future iterations. And then, things like the Everyday Hero Awards, it just made sense to bring, all of that kind of reward recognition piece all into one app. And the same with Bright Ideas, which we've launched this month, because we used to have a separate app for that. And, it's 2020 and life is complicated enough. And we really just want to bring all of that, good employee engagement activity all onto one platform. But user-driven, really, user-driven.
One of the questions that we had was what makes this app different from ones you might have produced in the past, and why did you choose to make Open House as a kind of a separate entity from those previous apps?
Yes, perhaps I wasn't really clear about that. So we haven't really had an internal comms app before. We have had a number of apps that are sort of, they are internal, but they're really for our lawyers to use when they're having conversations with clients. So really this was our first internal comms app, and I hope it won't be the last.
Great. We had a question about the structure of the comms team. Is there a dedicated internal comms team, or are you part of marketing or external comms?
Ooh, that old chestnut. No, we are separate, and I think we are quite unusual. So I report into our CEO directly, which means that our comms team has a real voice and is able to have real influence across the organisation. And when we're a really small team actually, so when we say our internal comms team, we actually only have one full-time internal comms specialist, then supported by other members of the team who have slightly broader remits, like Rebecca, like me.
Great. And I'm just going to thank you, delegates, because you're asking all the questions that I had on my list too. So you're doing my job for me. This is great. Keep them coming. One question was, do you use push notifications? And if not, or if so, how do you draw people into using the app?
Rebecca, do you want to pick that one up?
Sure, yes. So under your profile on the app, you can select which chat rooms you'd like notifications for. So when there's a new post in that chat room, you'll receive a push notification. So this is a really kind of an app that's in real time, and that's really helped with kind of the conversational side. And also you can mention people, like with most social media apps. So if you mention someone, that will also come up as a notification, and then you can obviously go in and reply.
We also give it quite a lot of prompting from our intranet and our CEO in his sort of regular kind of firm-wide updates. Any opportunity to push the app, he will.
And cats and chickens obviously help.
And the chickens and the
cats. About evaluation, how have you gotten user feedback from the app, and then how many employees are actively contributing versus just kind of lurking? What are the kind of metrics and measures?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So the honest answer is we haven't had formal feedback yet. We are just about to go live with another employee engagement survey, and part of that will be around gathering that feedback in a more formal, structured way, which we've not been able to do so far. So we are very reliant on the feedback that comes from the app itself and what we can see on the back end. I would say kind of regular hardcore users of the app are probably, I want to say 300 or 400, something like that. So it's relatively small, but equally as a proportion of the overall number who've downloaded it, I'm happy with where we are, but all to play for, as the expression goes.
We have had an interesting question just come in. Do you moderate any of the reactions or responses? This person says, I have suggested interactive tools in the past, but management is always nervous about staff getting into negative debates. And she's trying to reassure them that, there wouldn't necessarily be a need for moderation if the management is transparent.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So remember, we're a law firm, so we are highly risk averse, and our culture is very self-regulatory. That said, no app gets launched in this firm without formal sign-off from risk. We have very structured terms and conditions which people have to sign up to before they can even use the app, etc., etc. So that's the sort of foundation for keeping it clean, shall we say. But we do also have moderators across the site on a really regular basis. From memory, I think there are maybe one or two things that we have had to ask people to remove, and it tends to have been where people have posted pictures of children, which we don't allow. I think it's just that, actually. I don't know that nobody's kind of gone rogue, shall we say.
No, everyone's been really well behaved. If we've had anything, it's been kind of honest mistakes, like photos of children, and we've just had to ask them to repost again without the photo. So
great. And then I guess what's next for Open House? How are you, if you are planning on keeping this app going, how are you planning on doing that and making sure that it kind of transitions from COVID-19 comms to kind of business as usual?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I would say that the sky's the limit, really, in terms of what we could do with it. And the challenge for us is to keep it relevant and keep it fresh. In particular, while we don't have an intranet that has that element of social interaction. So I could see potentially this is an app that is a bridge from now until we have a new intranet, and potentially once we get to that stage, it may well be that it's an intranet that has a mobile version, etc., etc. Or it may be that our people tell us actually they want both. They don't want the intranet, which is obviously very corporate in style and has to be, and they still want pictures of chickens and naughty ponies, etc., etc. So it will last as long as people say they need it.
Brilliant. Great. I think that's everything from me. Thank you guys so much for sharing. You've had a lot of great feedback, so I think you've cottoned onto something that's going well.